Well, welcome everyone. My name is Alicia Castañeda, and I'm the director of the Foreign Language Labs here on campus. And I'm also the director of the Spanish Writing Center. And I'll be doing the workshop today on avoiding plagiarism. Okay? The first thing we want to cover is, what is plagiarism? We need to define what it is. Plagiarism, whether it's on a paper that you've submitted, a project, or anything that you submit for a grade in your classes, relates to the following things. It could be omitting quotation marks from your quoted material or any other required distinctions that your writing style will require of you. If you omit those, then that is plagiarism. Even if it was by accident, it's plagiarism. If you paraphrase a specific passage from a specific source without including that information and giving proper credit to the source, that is plagiarism. If you replicate another student's work, whether in part or in whole, so if you take a paragraph from your friend's essay and try to include it in your essay, that's plagiarism. Even if you don't take an entire paper from your classmate or from your friend, if you just use a small portion of it, that is plagiarism. Obviously, also having someone else complete the work for you is plagiarism. So I think that's one of the most obvious ones, okay? So you definitely don't want to have someone else do the work for you. But there are a couple more things related to plagiarism that we need to cover. And the first is having someone revise your work for you. Now we're talking about someone who's not a professor and not a trained tutor, okay? We at the Center for Writing and Languages go to great lengths to train our tutors in how to tutor properly and how to help you properly. If you have someone else do it, maybe a friend or a family member, the problem is that they'll go right into editing most of the time, okay? And once someone else starts to edit your work, in other words, when they correct it, when they make changes to it, it then becomes their work and not your own, okay? Which you really want to avoid, because then, of course, that's academic dishonesty and plagiarism, okay? But there's something else called self-plagiarism. And self-plagiarism is where you take an essay or work that you've written for another course in the past, or possibly another course in the present, and you try to use that essay in another class. Okay, so if I wrote an essay for class, let's say Counseling 501 a year ago, and now I want to use it for Counseling 601 in this current semester, that will be considered self-plagiarism. Okay, you cannot do that. Once you're at the graduate level, sometimes you can cite yourself as a source, but you need to make sure you give proper credit to that paper that you've previously written, and you want to be careful in doing so, because more than likely you want to focus on peer-reviewed, published works rather than your own works, okay? But there is the possibility of doing that. You just need to be careful and check with your professor ahead of time, okay? Next, we're going to look at possible consequences of plagiarism. Now, the degree will vary according to who your professor is, but if you commit plagiarism at any degree, okay, a sentence or a paper or whatever it may be, if you commit plagiarism to any degree, your professor has the right to fail you for the essay, fail you for the course, and then submit a report to the administration citing that you were failed for academic dishonesty and for plagiarism on your paper. Okay? So it's very important that we be extremely careful in how we cite our sources and making sure that we cite all of our sources properly when we're writing our essays. Okay? Now, let's look at the different documentation styles. First, we have MLA. And in MLA, you'll oftentimes use a signal tag as well as a parenthetical citation. MLA is mostly used in English and communications courses. Okay? Probably most of you are using APA, which is used in psychology and other human sciences. And you'll make sure that you use your parenthetical citations to give credit to the source. And something different about APA is that you usually want to include the date of the publication. Okay? They really place emphasis on the date of the publication. A couple other documentation styles are Turabian. Turabian, you use footnotes in general. This writing style is often used in history classes, philosophy classes, and religion classes. And then we have AMA. And AMA stands for American Medical Association. So by and large, the nursing courses, pre-med courses that we offer here at Liberty are going to use the AMA writing style. Okay, sources. Using your sources. Now, There are a few different ways to use your sources, and they are quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. We're going to look at those right now. The first one, quoting, is when you use the exact same words that the author uses. Okay? The words are so important that you need to use the exact same words. And paraphrasing, the next one, is when you restate the author's ideas in your own words and in your own sentence structure. Now that's important. You can't follow along the same sentence structure as the source. It has to be different. It has to be placed in your own words, your own thoughts, but a reflection of what that source is given. Okay? And the paraphrase is going to be about the same length as the original text. So for a paraphrase, you generally want to take one sentence to a very short paragraph. You don't want to get too long when you're doing a paraphrase. You don't want to get into source material that's too long. But for summarizing, you're going to take the author's main idea and just briefly state it in your own words. Okay? Now you might take a large text, maybe a page or 2 pages, and shrink that down into 1 or 2 sentences. So for the summary, your summarization is going to be much shorter than the original text. Okay? Now remember that all 3 of these forms of using sources in your papers must be cited correctly. Okay? If you have any doubt, be sure to check your APA, MLA, AMA, whichever writing formatting style that you're using. Make sure you check with the manual first. If you have any doubts, your professor is your best resource. Okay? Make sure that you check with your professor about the standards that you need to use for your specific course. Okay? Now, when to use each method. You want to quote, like I said before, when the words are just as important or absolutely necessary to use in your paper. Okay, so you want to use a direct quote, and oftentimes you want to use quotation marks to set that off. The quotation marks help the reader distinguish between your words and the source's words, which is essential. You don't want to use the source's words and not include those quotation marks, and then it seems like you're trying to pass all that information off as your own. Okay, so the quotation marks are extremely important with a direct quote. Make sure that you use them. For a paraphrase, you want to use those when the message is more important than the word choice itself. Okay? Again, it's still going to be about the same length, but you can put that message into your own words. And with a summary, you really want to use those when you're dealing with a large text that you need to condense down to a much shorter version. Now, how not to paraphrase. Paraphrasing is actually somewhat difficult. You do not want to go directly from the page to the computer screen word by word. Okay? So let's say that this book is my source, and I just really like this information that's on this page, and I want to make sure that I include it in my paper. So I am not going to look at the book and type into my paper. Okay? There are a few reasons why. When you do that, you're going to be more likely to copy the author's words, okay, the source's words and the source's sentence structure, which you don't want to do, right? And then your word choice could possibly be a little bit awkward, because then you'll be using the same, you'll be typing what you're seeing but trying to change it perhaps for synonyms or different word choices that are similar but not the same, okay? So those are things that you don't want to do. You don't want to paraphrase in that way. Now, how you want to paraphrase, you want to start with a manageable amount of source material. Okay, remember that paraphrase is not a large amount of material. Perhaps it's a paragraph in your book. Okay, so you'll read it several times. Read it several times over and over. Really make sure that you're getting what that passage is saying, that you really understand what it's saying. Then you're going to close your book, you're going to put it to the side, and then you're going to type your paraphrase. Okay? You're not looking at the textbook at the time, or at the source, the article, whatever it may be. You're just putting it in your own words on your computer. And then once you feel like you've gotten it down, once you feel like you've got the original meaning of the text, come back to it, okay, and double check to make sure that it's accurate. Okay, did I really give the true meaning of what the source is trying to portray here? Okay? Now, let's look at note-taking. Before you even begin the research process, you should start by writing a rough draft, or writing a word web, or brainstorming your ideas, making a list, making an outline. Getting your thoughts out on paper is what you want to do. Okay? Whether it's a physical notepad or on your computer, you want to make sure that you get your ideas down. before you even start researching. That way you know what you already know. Okay, you're getting your ideas about that topic down, so you'll have that ready, and then you'll also get a better idea of what you think is important in your paper. So if you have a topic, you pick your topic, and then you want to write a word web, and okay, I think I want to write on this topic. Oh, well, this information is related to that, okay, and then I have more information over here that's related to that topic. That's a good idea. And you come down over here, and oh, wait, these relate to each other, and this one kind of relates to that one, and here's another one, but that one doesn't really, I don't really need that one, so I'll just take that out. So in the process of making your web or your outline or just jotting down your thoughts, you can figure out what is really important to you, what you really want to include in your essay or your paper, and what you don't really necessarily need. Okay? Also, you can use a spreadsheet or anything, a Word document, whatever helps you learn best, whatever study methods you have already established, or whatever helps you organize your thoughts well. Okay? Now, there's also something called double entry note taking. The first portion of that is that you're going to put the author and or shortened title of the resource and the page number in your paper. Okay? Sometimes when you're in the middle of writing your paper, you've got the thoughts are just flowing. You've got a good idea of what you want to say. You're just kind of flowing with the information. You're getting it down, right? You're in the middle of your paragraph, and oh, I want to use this source, and I put that in there. And sometimes, you don't have time to cite it properly because you're just thinking and you really want to get your thoughts out first before you go back and make it perfect. When you do that, make sure that you make a note. Okay, make a note of the title, make a note of the author's name, and make a note of the page number. Okay, just even if it's not a perfect citation, make a note there so that you know which source you used and what page you found it on. Okay, and then you can continue your paragraph, continue getting all of your thoughts out, and then go back and make it right. Okay. Another portion of the double entry note taking is that you can put the page number of your paper on the source itself also. So if I have my book or an article printed out, and I know that I used this paragraph for paraphrase on my essay's page 2, then I'll just write essay page 2 on it. Okay? So that I have both places have information for where I use that source and where that source came from. And it's extremely important. I had just the other day, I had a woman come to me. She told me all about how she had written her essay, and she was so proud of it, and she was all done. And then she realized that she didn't do her citations correctly. And she didn't include the source information. She didn't include the page numbers. So she had to go back to each source and find the page number. So on some of them she was rereading them to try to find the page number where she found that information, which was extremely tedious and time consuming. Okay, your time is very important, so you don't want to waste your time doing the work 2 times over. Okay, so just make sure you jot down that essential information, the title, the author's name, page number, just so you know where to reference back to when you're making those citations perfect again. Okay. Now, also another note on note taking is I don't know how many of you use Post-it notes or little sticky notes like this, but these are great resources. So when I'm reading through a text and I think, wow, I really like that. That's an awesome theme right there concerning love. Wow. So what I'll do is I'll take my notepad, I'll just scribble down the word love really quick on it, and I'll slap it right in the textbook so that I know right where it was. Okay? So I have a huge note saying, that's where that note is. That way I don't get to the end of the textbook and say, you know what, there was a really great passage in there somewhere, but I can't remember where it is. Okay? Because I'll know right where it is when I have my little sticky note right on the side, or when I put my little tab on the side. And the same is for my articles. I like to print out my articles that I read for research, and so I'll place a little tab or a sticky note on the side just to make sure that I know where that information is coming from for when I want to use it in the papers that I'm writing myself. Okay? But learn your own study habits. Learn the best way that you learn. Okay? Figure that out and make sure that you're consistent with it. All right? Now, SafeAssign. SafeAssign is a Blackboard-based program that finds parts of a paper that match other students' papers, websites, or any information that's out there on the web that could be related to your topic. Okay? Now, some instructors use this, not all do. For those of you who've taken online courses, most of the online courses incorporate this, and quite a number of the residential courses incorporate SafeAssign as well. And it's not a foolproof program, but it is very useful for instructors like myself who want to be alerted to possible plagiarism issues in student essays. Okay? Your response to plagiarism, the number one thing is don't plagiarize. Okay? Be careful with your sources. If you're not sure how to cite a source, ask. Okay? Ask your professor. Come to the Graduate Writing Center. Come to the Undergraduate Writing Center. Visit the Online Writing Center if you're an online student. And make sure that you get the information that you need. You really want to do your best and give your best effort in trying to give proper credit to the sources that you use in your papers. Know that the percentage result in your SafeAssign report is not necessarily telling of whether or not you've plagiarized. Okay? So, for example, you could have a very high percentage. You could have, let's say, 45 or 50% of your paper has matched to other sources online. Okay? If you've cited all of your sources properly, if you've cited all of your paraphrases and summaries and direct quotes, then you'll probably, if you've used a lot of them, you will probably get a higher amount, higher percentage on your report. But if you've cited them properly, you don't have anything to worry about. Okay. In the same turn, if you plagiarize one sentence and you only get a 2 or 10% match on SafeAssign, if that 1 or 2 sentences is plagiarized, it's plagiarism. Okay? And you could come to the consequences that we discussed earlier in the session. All right? So it all depends on the professor's judgment as well. The professor is going to look at the report. They're going to see, okay, well, John paraphrased here. I see that he cited that properly. He did do a direct quote here. Okay, that matched. That's fine. And he'll know, your professor will know whether or not to take action or contact you with further information of questioning whether or not you plagiarize on a paper. Okay? So know that SafeAssign is there to help us as instructors and also help you as students to keep you accountable in what you do. And it's not a tool to be afraid of. It's just another reason. And of course, acting with integrity is our highest reason here at Liberty University to avoid plagiarizing. Okay, we want to act with integrity, we want to act with honesty, and avoid plagiarism as much as possible. Okay. Again, if you have any questions, about how to avoid plagiarism or what constitutes plagiarism, please do not hesitate to, number 1, contact your professor, and number 2, contact us here at the Center for Writing and Languages, because we'll be more than happy to help. Thank you so much for your time and for coming out today. I really appreciate you all being here.